Welcome to the Everything is Final Fantasy podcast. I'm Drew Kreisman.
And I'm Ira Kreisman.
And on this episode, we continue my ranking of the top 40 pieces of music on the Final Fantasy VIII soundtrack. When last we left our heroes, or something, we were at the 20th piece, which was in fact the Oath, Squall Heart's theme. And now as we move into the top 20, Ira, we have another big step up with, believe it or not, our first, but I'm sure you'll believe this part, not our last, piece of battle music, Premonition.
I remember when we were talking about the Chrono Trigger music that I said the battle theme, the regular battle theme, took a while to get going.
Yeah.
I might have to reevaluate in light of how long it takes this one to get going.
Yeah, right? Takes a minute.
But this is emblematic of fighting these, a being from the future who has essentially all the time in the world because of time compression.
Sure.
She doesn't need to hurry, and she's not going to hurry on our account.
Right. We'll see that with several of these, especially the later game or sorceress-related boss battle pieces, that including the very last piece of battle music that we will eventually get to. It takes a minute to get going, and I think you're right. That's a purposeful... These beings have all the time in the world to monologue at us and to play with us and look down at us. And it is very much a surprise that we win the day in the end. And I think these pieces of music very much do the job of telling that story. All right, Ira, at number 18, I have a piece that I'm not sure a lot of people would include or remember to include in this exercise. One that, again, is oft. Yeah, I did it again. Left off. Left off. The Final Fantasy VIII soundtrack altogether, when you buy it, when we had it in its physical form, which we very much did on 4 CDs, this was not on there. But it's one of my favorite pieces. It's actually this and not Liberi Fatali that is the very first piece of music that you hear when you boot up Final Fantasy VIII, and it is called Overture.
So I like this piece, but why is it so high on your list, Drew?
Well, I've mentioned in several other capacities that I have a bias for the unique, right? I tend to like things that are just apart from the other things. And I love that in a story about wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff and time loops and all this nonsense going on, the weirdness, this is totally out of context. This piece also accompanies a bunch of out of context pictures, scenes that aren't necessarily directly in the game. Like they're from moments of the game, but when we experience them in the game, we don't experience them from this angle. It's like they're photographs, it's like they're memories of something that has already happened and or will happen again, right? And the way this piece slowly layers, it kind of lulls you in with this repetitive but oddly rhythmic, militaristic march sort of pattern, and then the strings get more and more interesting, kind of darker and darker, and more contemplative. And in a similar but very different way to Liberi Fatali, it kind of tells you the whole story of the game without telling you anything at all, right there at the beginning. And it's never brought back again. It's just this piece here that plays during that weird photo sequence at the beginning that you can just skip and not even actually have impact your playthrough of the game. But I thought it was super cool, and it just left an impact on me. Okay, at number 17, another piece of battle music, and you're not going to believe I have it this low, but it's Maybe I'm a Lion.
Ooh, I just love that title.
Yeah.
So is this one of Squall's themes, or is this maybe
Sure.
Griever's theme?
I tend to think of it as Griever's theme. It's definitely the theme, the music that plays while you're fighting Griever, but if we're thinking more existentially about it, is that even the right use of that word? I don't care for right now. Sure. I think so. I think a little bit of both, right? It's that other side of them, and back to your point on the title, Maybe I'm a Lion seems like a question at Squall, and I know we said it multiple times, and it's worth repeating again, that he is a 17-year-old, and sort of this concept of himself as the knight or as the lion, or I talked during his piece about him as maybe a cowboy or a samurai, right? These very idealized versions of a protector and what he is supposed to be. And those two things coming to a head. This is a great piece of music. It really is. There's some odd pairings of like electric guitar with tribal drums and vocal sounds. Some stuff that I think is supposed to even invoke like Native American melodies, which can sometimes be problematic, but as we've talked about before, when you're blending it with a bunch of other things and you're not just tokenizing or stealing or appropriating, when you're sort of lightly borrowing from in order to create something totally unusual and itself. Like, I love this piece a lot. I do think I prefer the Black Mage's version of it, particularly for something that's not in the original, so I can't give it credit for like a rock and guitar solo and Uematsu's prog rock electric organ. That is only some of that prog rock organ is in this original version of it, but it's such a cool, and again, a piece that almost feels like it comes out of nowhere with its sounds. Alright, at 16 I have a piece that would be almost a parody of being too on the nose, even its title being The Castle. It's just pipe organs and harpsichords all on top of each other. But if this wasn't so intricately woven together, and like, this is just such a masterful job of, hey man, what does the castle for the lady from the future and the past with all of the powers sound like? Well, it sounds like this.
My first thought is that this reminds me of that one bit from Dancing Mad.
Mm-hmm.
And my other thought is it kind of reminds me of Castlevania.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's called Castle.
Sure.
But we're back to the harpsichord, and that appears to be the instrument of the sorceress from the future. She could have had any instrument, and that's what she chose.
Yeah, this is such a cool piece. And like you said, it starts with those vibes. I think it also pulls on once it has a weird kind of breakdown there in the middle and almost starts to sound like it becomes a different piece. There's a weird percussive thing that reminds me of Chrono Trigger. It's those like whoop, whoop, like we talked about the droplets of time when reality gets weird. It also makes me think of that, a kind of whoop, whoop. And it just... Yeah, sometimes that pipe organ takes over, sometimes the harpsichord takes over. The sorceress and witches themes are all over this, but kind of darting in and out of it like they're flying through the windows of the castle or something. This is just such a cool, moody, weird piece. And sometimes I talk about pieces that don't really go anywhere. You know, they set a nice mood, a nice tone, and then don't necessarily go anywhere. Sometimes that's totally fine. This is going everywhere all of the time. As soon as you think it kind of lulls you into one mood or one rhythmic tone or one pattern, it just changes it up. And I think that's a really cool way to symbolize this castle with all of the elements of the past, the present, the future, time compression. Yeah, you get it. Very clever. Speaking of the compression of time, in at number 14 I have compression of time.
I believe the music theory term for this is more spooky space music.
Right, correct. Yeah. So I think of this one even more than the others as something that you might have heard on NPR's Hearts of Space that Dad would play as we were driving home at night a lot of times when we were kids. And I think that this piece in particular is really interesting because of that saxophone to start with. It's an unusual sound to hear. We haven't really heard it, I don't think at all, maybe tiny bits in other parts, but it certainly hasn't been the main melodic instrument in anything else on the soundtrack. We talked in Chrono Trigger about the saxophone as kind of a futuristic or a way to almost a timeless sound. It's often associated too with the human voice, being very close to the human voice. And so it kind of sounds to me like crying out, but also like an alarm in this. But it's an alarm that doesn't repeat exactly each time. It has that weird, first it stops before your brain wants it to, and then it keeps going when your brain isn't expecting it to. And it's just an extraordinarily clever melody, even though it's very simple and it layers. And then my favorite part of this piece is probably once that alarm has become just ingrained in you, once you really have gotten used to its odd stumbling pattern of stopping and then going when you weren't ready for it to, it cuts out entirely and just leaves the harp, the sort of Final Fantasy instrument, right, wandering alone in the darkness for a moment before all of the vocal sounds and strings and the saxophone come back in. And it just, for a piece that's really as you mentioned, kind of spooky space music, this one kind of gets me emotional with the way it does feel like just floating through the vastness of space and time, and very, very melancholy as well. Okay, let's do more battle music.
Excellent.
At number 13, we have the strange time signature bass battle music, Don't Be Afraid.
This is some boppin' battle music. I like this one a lot. I think it's one of the all-time regular battle musics.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure what else to say about it.
Sure. As I mentioned, I like that it's in 5/4 time. It gives it that unusual, like most of the Final Fantasy music is forward moving, but it being in that unusual time signature gives it a unique forward momentum that I really like. And like a few other pieces that we're going to talk about here, I really enjoy where it goes, what it does, that, you know, it could have been just its first couple of sections in a loop, but when it gets into its bigger open string segments, it just really feels like a lot of fun. And it loops nicely. I like it, not as nicely as the next one, which has one of my favorite loops of Uematsu's career, but this is just, I agree with you. It's one of the all-timers, and I was surprised I didn't have it higher. It's just the quality of the rest of the music on this particular soundtrack. And as I was just alluding to, at number 12, it's the boss battle music, Force Your Way.
I will forever associate this piece with the internationally renowned rock band, the Black Mages.
Yeah,
the Black Mages version of this just is, I mean, it rocks. It just rocks. It's amazing. It's a beautiful piece. The progression of it from, it might be just a regular 4/4 time signature at the beginning, but then it really gets into it's almost a march, but it's running.
Right.
And then we really get into the organ music. It's incredible.
Yeah, it feels like Uematsu just finally, they're like, yeah, we know you love the prog rock stuff and you've got to dabble in it and you've got to play with it before, but you just want to go bananas. He was like, yes, I do want to do that. And like I said, the way that it loops there at the end is once it's gotten you into that big build, as you were talking about, with the running, driving section, which is, I guess, kind of its bridge or something. And then just right in the middle of a big turnaround, the introductory bum, 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 bum just comes right back in. Oh, it's so good. I love this piece. And like you said, the Black Mages version, fantastic. Original version, fantastic. All of it. Okay. Now it gets real. This is tough. At number 11, only a couple of letters difference, but a very different track. Not Force Your Way, but Find Your Way. So there are a number of things that I love about this piece, including that its melody is just sort of one of those undeniable things that just gets into your skin, and it's so good and comfortable and timeless and feels somehow new and unique to this world, and yet maybe like something you've heard a million times before. But to me, what really stands out about this piece is just kind of how haphazardly here it is. It's just something that Uematsu wrote for the caves of Final Fantasy VIII. And we do know that a lot of weird and cool and fun and mysterious things happen in those caves. But this is super moody, and this is probably another one that I'm giving a lot of extra credit to multiple versions of it that I've heard over the years, including, again, the piano version, which is just fantastic and super intricate with its melodies and its melodic reinterpretation, I should say. But it's just a piece to me that it sounds weird to say, but is almost way better than it needed to be. Like, you could have just done some cave music, right? Why is this so extraordinarily beautiful?
Well, and I think we're getting back to maybe one of the themes of this whole soundtrack is pensive, wistful, melancholy. It has some of those same qualities again. We're back to the harpsichord. A little less I'm in charge and you're in my scary castle harpsichord, but definitely pensive, thoughtful.
There is a consistency to the Final Fantasy VIII soundtrack, and him using a lot of the same tones, and again darting those witches in there a lot of the times helps with that. I think for whatever, say, a soundtrack like Final Fantasies 6 and 7 may have a little bit more diversity to them, but 8 has a consistency about it that I think you're right, kind of always keeps you in that mood space, except for when you hop on the airship and you're on an anime now. But but that's purposeful, right? Those tones are on purpose. And so, yeah, this is another one that's just, it's one of my favorite just pieces of mood tone music that doesn't really do any storytelling at all. It just is phenomenal to listen to. On the other end of the thematic spectrum, we have several pieces at number 10, but really these are the witches, the succession of witches, or the track Fitos Lusek, Vikos Finosek, or one that I'm not going to play now. Spoilers, I'm going to send us out on it, but I want to mention right now that the successor is the piece, so I'm just going to have these playing behind us as we talk. These are the spooky dookie. These are the really spooky dookies, right? The tracks that play during the parade when we're getting ready to assassinate the sorcerer. So basically anytime Spooky Adia is on screen, sometimes for Adele and Ultimecia as well. And they're very, very moody in that kind of opposite. Now we're less pensive and a little more scared of the scary lady who can make the doors melt. Obviously, I like the repetition of all the VIII OST stuff and the harpsichord making a triumphant return. And I really enjoy, again, the tribal elements that kind of oddly work their way into this stuff that gives it that kind of timeless, classic, spooky vibe to it whenever this piece or one of its many leitmotifs comes up throughout the story. But I do think my favorite thing about it is that it's like our, and I don't even want to call them all villains, it's that our group of people, the sorceresses, because one of our heroes is one of them, in Renoa, have this thematic piece that follows them, and it evolves throughout the story and grows at times more menacing and more sinister. But it concludes with the piece, The Successor, which starts with the same elements and some of those same harsh notes, but it's on the piano, which immediately makes it a little bit lighter than the harpsichord, and concludes in a much warmer, brighter spot during the scene when Matron is taking on the powers of Ultimecia come back as we do the full time loop. And it is beautiful, both just on its own, but in terms of the way the music tells that time loop story, all the way from the most menacing, difficult, evil parts of it to this very warm moment when Matron makes her sacrifice. At number 9, it's more late-game boss battle music, and it's the legendary Beast.
I like this one because it's steady. I think it's a very steady driving piece, and it just sort of builds up as it adds more instruments and more melodic presence. It is a cool one. I like this one.
Yeah, I really love that it provides that steadiness of being a battle music, not quite with a bass line that we'll talk about in a minute, but it has that jump, bump, jump, which keeps you just sort of moving forward. And it's these electronic instruments that are singular and almost feel way in the background that are providing the intricacies, the weirdness, the odd structure of it, so that it, even though it's very steady, it isn't very repetitive. It keeps moving forward, especially in its melodies. Like you said, it grows throughout really 3-4 minutes. It just builds and builds and builds until it does start to fall apart just a little bit, get a little bit more chaotic, a little out of control before it comes back to itself. But really, this is one that, because I'm not a music scholar, I just know just enough to know that I would put this in front of the real music scholars and say you should listen to this, because this is a great example of how you can take a lot of simple ideas that are maybe going to do the simple task of giving you boss battle in a video game music, but make it something far more deliciously interesting to anyone who wants to give it that deep dive listen. All right, next I have a trio of tracks, really, that do the opposite thing. They aren't intricate boss battle music that gets your brain stirring. In fact, they are, in my mind, the best examples of something you were sort of talking about earlier, the kind of relaxation, study music vibe. But these are some all-timer study music pieces. You could put these three in any order you want, but I felt all three deserved to be in the top 10 importantly. And so, starting at number 8, I have Fisherman's Horizon.
Yeah, this one is great. I love this one. I love how chill it is. I love how it evokes the mood of the people who are there.
Yeah.
At FH, as they ridiculously call it.
At FH, that's right.
Yeah, a beautiful piece. Nicely done all around.
So I said this about a piece earlier, and who can remember which it was? I have no idea. But one thing I love about this, and Uematsu does it from time to time, is he'll build an extraordinarily pleasant melody. This is, again, town music, so he eats up pleasant town music, right? Again, evoking a little bit of kids run through the city, but now we're kids hanging out on the pier, right? Going fishing.
On the dock of the bay, as it were.
Yeah, kids on the dock of the bay. And the first minute is kids on the dock of the bay, and it's beautiful, and it could loop right there with the melody that it presented, extrapolated on a little bit. It could loop right there, but it goes into this other section, this B or C section. It's probably more of a C section. And speaking of a C section, it feels like the song itself just goes for a walk on the beach. It's just all of a sudden this big, and when it's the Distant Worlds version or the live orchestra version, which probably I will play because I do prefer it when you've got the full instruments here, and it's got all of the singers. They've got the people. It sounds like they're just going for a beautiful sun. The seagulls are out. You can hear them. I feel like you can smell the ocean air when you listen to this song. It's just like, man. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not a musical scholar enough to break down any of this technically. I just know that it's really nice.
You did better than I did. I just said I thought it was pretty.
Because it is. Another one that's pretty, but weirder, and I think a bit more intricate and interesting, and got some unusual sounds. And again, I prefer the full orchestra one, but it's the main overworld music called Blue Fields.
It is kind of... It's not what I would have thought of as overworld music.
Right.
When I think of the other pieces that fulfill that function.
Right.
It's it is kind of chill. It doesn't prepare me for potential random encounters.
Right. It's almost too lully at times.
Yeah. I definitely like the piece. I definitely like that it's chill. I don't know where I would have ranked it, because you know how I am about ranking things.
Sure.
It's... I don't know. Is it almost contradictory to its purpose, or is it meant to evoke this overworld that is maybe... I don't know. Maybe our guys aren't that worried about running into random encounters.
Right. No, I do think, because, maybe our guys are more used to it. They're all military child soldiers who were brought up to fight, right? So maybe it is a bit more of a mundane task for them. You're right, it lacks, say, the spiriting adventure of, as we've talked about, the Final Fantasy V, or even VI overworld music, and certainly some of the ones before that. And it's not as dark as the Final Fantasy VII music, which is, I feel, more purposefully foreboding, where you've got the, evil corporation is ruling the world. Better look out for that monster, like you said, right? This is more, it feels to me like it's closer to your Alien pieces that, we're talking about. We're on a strange world. I feel like that's particularly sold by these... in the original one, it's kind of an odd clarinet that, like I said, I don't love the sample for, but there's this melodic line of that just, it feels like you're kind of... I almost feel like the character should be doing a spacewalk as they go around this planet, because the music bumps. It's got like a weird plucking of the strings, which to some degree invokes the back in time music of Chrono Trigger again, but... I just think this piece for me strikes that perfect in-between of, it is relaxing and it is a little more subdued and melancholy, but it's funky. There's a weirdness to it that keeps you just enough on edge that a giant pillar of monsters might fall from the moon at any moment. And completing our trio of feel-good, relaxy study with a bit of funkiness in it. At number 6, I've got Balamb Garden.
Yeah, I like this one too. So when we were ranking our SIDs, as it were, one of the reasons I gave for, I don't even remember where I put him, but this particular Sid Kramer, was because I thought he probably had some hand in choosing the music that plays when you're walking through the halls of Balamb Garden. Almost like music that plays at a supermarket.
Right.
And it's nice. It's a cool piece. It's chill. It evokes the mood. Again, I don't have anything real clever to say about it, but I really like this piece.
Yeah, I think like the overall music, it's got a couple of blue notes in there that you wouldn't necessarily expect out of a total relaxation hangout piece. I love that there's just a harmonica in it, which I think, or maybe it's supposed to be like the concertina or the Weird Al Yankovic playing the accordion again. But I think it's supposed to be a harmonica in this case, and it's oftentimes played that way, which feels like, yeah, you're just walking through the quad and some guy is playing the harmonica and, people are studying and laughing and, in this case, doing magic and getting ready for war. But, it somehow manages to capture all of that, the hustle and bustle, but it's relaxed. I like the little bells. It's just a personal favorite, lovely one to listen to. And its reinterpretation, which is either called Ami or Amy, AMI, oftentimes just played on the piano all by itself, which strips down some of the hustle and bustle vibe and just gets, I think, more to almost the character of being a student. I think here's why. I do have a deeper reason for why I think this piece of music does stand out. I saw something very recently on the Blue Sky, not looking up, but on the social media app, and somebody was saying that a lot of times movie music tells you what the situation is. Something scary is happening, something adventurous is happening, something whatever, and video game music a lot of times tells you how characters feel about what's happening. And this person was kind of saying that's why they think that video game music oftentimes goes a little bit deeper or can be better. And I was like, I don't necessarily buy into all of that. And I sort of dismissed it entirely until this moment, thinking that I think what Uematsu's really good at, and particularly with this piece, is that it is both an environmental mood piece. It's a melody that captures where we are, what's happening. We're on campus. People are studying. People are working. People are thinking, but people are also relaxing and hanging out and being kids and growing up. But it's also a character theme. It's about those people. It's telling the story of their lives. And even just listening to this music, we can think of what it would be like to go to school in this strange, eventually flying garden place with dinosaurs living in the danger room, right? Like, it is both environment and character music that sets a tone and tells the story. And he's remarkable at that, and I think this is just one of his best ones. And at number 5, I have The Man with the Machine Gun.
Yep. Yeah. One of the most obvious best pieces ever written for Final Fantasy ever. Yeah.
And what's funny again is it's like, this isn't one that I would put in front of the board of know-it-alls and say, check out, they'd be like, this sounds like club dance music with like some orchestra on top of it, that, oh no, it goes in kind of an interesting place there, but no, there's not a whole lot to this. But it's like, dude, in context, you don't understand. This is a splash of color after a sea of gray. This is a breath of fresh air after suffocating for a few hours. There's something about the way this piece of music in the story hits you in the face and then overwhelms you with sound and percussion and electronics. And then it does have a pretty great melody to it once you dive in. But it's just one of those undeniable pieces of Final Fantasy music. All right, in at number 4, I have the final boss music, and I'll talk about that in just a second. The Extreme.
So I have to immediately think about Dancing Mad and One Winged Angel and how this starts nothing like that.
Right. Yeah, we were talking earlier about some battle music that takes a minute to get going, but this sure does hang out in just the harp and piano for quite a bit of time. Now, this is probably the number one piece that I would put in front of the panel of Smarty Pantses. This syncopation is remarkably intricate. Almost too much, but I think because he has so many long, slow notes over the top of it that make melodic sense, and because I think he's been building to this all game in so many fascinating and subtle ways, it just works. But I do love that he's using harp and piano, which are the kind of first. They're both early instruments in and of themselves, but very important to Final Fantasy. Like, right, the main prelude tends to be played on the harp first and foremost. And so that he has those two instruments kind of wrapping around and kind of battling each other, but very quietly for over a minute, like a minute and a half before what happens, Ira. And this is amazing to me that, again, he can be this level of storyteller when, some people think that their job is to provide music that goes with the scene. Well, after all of that, and after this big build, it all cuts out for a minute, and then we hear something we have not heard for 2 games. The classic Final Fantasy bassline from the first 6 games is all of a sudden, in the middle of the final battle of Final Fantasy VIII, just there. Again, with time compression, having brought back this thing from the past. And it's like in this huge moment, he's reaching for what he needs to kick this song into overdrive. What does he do? His old bass line. But then he takes it into a new Final Fantasy VIII weird direction. It's like, it's so great. So many weird electronic things happening here, weird melodic and counter-melodic things happening here, that, again, we would almost have to dedicate like an entire 30 minutes to do it justice without just saying this is really, really cool. And to your point, I think important that he didn't just do, just like with Final Fantasy, he didn't just do another big organ piece. We got that with the castle, but we don't do Dancing Mad again, and we don't do a big Latin choir piece. Like, by that time, people were already stealing his, not that he was the first one to do it, but One Winged Angel was so popular, other people were already doing that. He's like, okay, well, I'm going to go the other way and do this. Well, it really is the watchword of these 2 episodes, a more contemplative kind of final boss battle music. What an interesting concept, right? To have that going on. So I think it's underrated in his pantheon of final boss battle musics. That said, I wouldn't rank it over Dancing Mad or One Winged Angel, so it is what it is. But I do think if you're a super music nerd, there are certain ways you could pick apart those pieces where this would be much more your jam. In at number 3, I have The Landing.
So does this only play at the beginning? Just for that one bit?
It might play one other time, but again, this is one you definitely associate with that one scene. It lines up so perfectly with, again, what it's titled, We're not getting too clever with some of these. It's the landing, I call it.
It is another anticipatory piece of music. We're about to do a big thing, and then it just sort of explodes into what that thing is. It's really evocative. It's really nicely done.
Yeah, honestly, it's really bad and dumb of me that it taken until just now. I should have been pointing out throughout several of these pieces are reminiscent of Hans Zimmer and Harry Gregson Williams, and particularly the soundtrack for the film The Rock, starring Nicolas Cage and Sean Connery, and other of those kinds of late 90s military drama things that there was a sound that would even persist, and even kind of into Gladiator and things like that. We talked in some of the early Final Fantasy games how Uematsu would often evoke John Williams and how he was doing much more of a Danny Elfman thing in Final Fantasy VII. Throughout this soundtrack, and most especially in this piece, he's in that kind of Hans Zimmer, Harry Gregson Williams territory of just super epic drums with the military driving strings, but then he also throws the sorceresses on top of it just for that extra fun and the Final Fantasy flavor and the particular Final Fantasy VIII flavor. And so, yeah, I think, again, this is one of those pieces that does both of the things really well. It's awesome to listen to on its own, just the way it builds. Its melody is infectious. It continues to grow on you in the way that it loops is really satisfying. But you also do associate it with one of the big early hook moments of the game, right? One of the first things that, apart from its intro, I think you get kind of a lull there for a while. You got to go to class for a minute, you wander out to a cave and fight a freak, but there's a bit of a downturn there, and then this happens, and you're on the boat, and you're going to the boat. Me and my nautical terms. It had been a minute, to be fair, but yeah, I think it's both of those things. A great piece of music that accompanies an awesome cutscene, a memorable moment, and really, I think, a point for a lot of us where we went, yeah, I'm gonna like this Final Fantasy VIII thing. Now this is going to feel weird, but we're going to skip number 2, or rather we already talked about number 2. Because I did it at the very beginning, because time compression is funny and weird, and that really was, for me, a coin flip. I would probably put it by itself. I would have put Liberi Fatali at number 1. I do think, like I said, it's in the conversation for Uematsu's greatest compositions of all time. That said, it does kind of stand on its own. It gets leitmotifed in other pieces, but the piece that does the most storytelling and is also on its own, the most interestingly composed, the most beautiful to listen to on the entire soundtrack, in my opinion, believe it or not, is Eyes on Me and its various leitmotifs.
Man, you are such a softie.
Yeah. True.
And here I thought you hated pop music. And I got to already tease you about your long-lasting and utter distaste for all things pop music.
Whatever.
Class it up.
Squall response.
Yeah, it really is a nice piece, and I think it is used effectively. It could have been overused, in fact.
Yeah.
But by introducing it before introducing it,
right.
in the dance scene early on,
right,
and then introducing the character who would eventually create and sing it and make it so popular, and then talking about it and how popular it is. And what do you mean you've never heard this song? It's so popular. before we eventually get to it. I think it didn't need to clear any hurdles. It didn't need to like raise the bar or anything. It just needed to be a nice, sweet song that that had some history with our characters' predecessors. Not quite Warriors of the Dawn predecessors, but predecessors nonetheless.
Previous generation, yeah.
And how it just fit with who they were in that bar, but also who Renoa and Squall are now. Like, do you not notice me noticing you?
Right.
And it's just used so well on the descent back to the planet, and just throughout. It's a beautiful piece. It's nicely done, and it's really well used.
Yeah, it is all of those things. And like you said, I've even fallen in love with it as a more universal love song, which is funny because it very literally, very specifically describes Julia's experience of Laguna coming into the bar and sitting and watching her play. But did you ever know that I was watching you as well? But I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe that's the brilliance of the writing of the scene, and which came first here. Does it really matter? But that feels more universal. Now, maybe that to me is in part because I met my wife when she came to one of my shows and sat in the front row and watched me play music. And so that's another reason why, especially all these years later, I've reconnected to this piece. Like you said, I love that there are various versions of it so that we've always got the melody around, but we're not getting sick of it. It's a waltz at one point. Then it's just on the piano and it's Julia, and she's saying she hasn't been able to come up with lyrics yet, but she's inspired by Laguna to write the lyrics. There's a fully orchestral version of it called Love Grows, which does some beautiful things on the French horn, which happened to be the instrument that I played in school, right? But I think if it were just all of those things, I would still have put it in second place. As beauty, and I talked to you before a little bit about how the chord progression is a little bit more interesting than your standard pop song, and Faye Wong's voice stood out, and it really does do things even more than your average pop song. But the way it is employed in the ending, and the way the ending theme with its dark, weird, strange tones that, again, I think the Smarty Pants people would find very interesting. Like the battle music, it stays there for a long time as Squall wanders through his purgatory. And then, it's tempting to think the Eyes on Me part of the story climaxes with Squall and Renoa in Ragnarok coming back down to Earth because it's such a beautiful and perfect scene. But it's really here, at the very end, when she has to walk out of the darkness, and it's her voice and this song that brings life and color back into the world, right? And there's just something about the way the Eyes on Me bursts out of that darkness of the ending thing that gets me every single time and makes me understand more why the pop song has to be what it is, why it has to represent such a heartbreaking but pure love, because it has to be the opposite of that lonely darkness.
Same old songs, just once more. My last night here with you. Maybe yes, maybe no. I kind of lied it your way. How you
That's it for this episode. Thank you for listening, and thank you to everyone who's reached out to us. Feel free to let us know what we missed, got wrong, or should have mentioned down in the comments there on the Patreon page or out in the social media sphere. Speaking of social media, make sure you're following us on Blue Sky, and of course make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube. Those of you who were listening closely last time probably heard a sign-off in which I promised to wrap up Final Fantasy VIII next time, forgetting that this was going to be a two-parter, so, just cross-apply that to this. Join us next time when I promise, for real this time, we will be wrapping up our conversation on Final Fantasy VIII.